Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I admit that I was never going to like any of the Liberal Party leadership candidates. I'm a conservative, but I'm genuinely kind of blown away by just how bad of a politician Mark Carney makes. Team Trudeau is backing this guy, and they probably already feel pretty foolish because at his campaign launch event in Edmonton, he really made the crowd go mild. I think that he was attempting to make it seem like his campaign is an overwhelming force with all the MPs behind him and having a packed crowd. But I think it just made it look like, yeah, this guy could easily lose to Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia Freeland, who also has an incredibly boring and beige personality, may have more energy than Mark Carney did here. I want to take you through all of it because the launch event was a big disaster, and it means that this entire Liberal leadership race is going to be an absolute knife fight all the way through. It's basically Team Trudeau versus not Team Trudeau. Each side disagree with each other on policy? Not really. They are just simply whoever likes Trudeau or doesn't like Trudeau running to try and take the helm of the party. And Mark Carney is the avatar of the Trudeau people, and Chrystia Freeland isn't. But anyways, let's get into this. But before we do, guys, reminder, like this video, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't and you like the show. And now, here is Mark Carney introducing himself in Edmonton. By the way, look at that campaign logo on the podium. It is basically the Metacredit logo, which is a debt recovery agency. Not a great look if you're running to be prime minister and your campaign already has the association with debt. But anyways, here is Mark trying to, I guess, ingratiate himself to the crowd, make himself seem like just another normal average Joe.
Welcome to Edmonton. It is great to be here. My name's Mark. I was born in Fort Smith, and I've been in the room next door many times. You know, picture this scene. Pack of kids, team of kids, mites and house league. Go in there, get their gear on, go out on the ice. You're back in between the second and third period to warm up, and I can still hear the blades of the skates.
Now, I've detected that many of you have probably already clicked off this video because Mark Carney is boring. This is like a Joe Biden story told by Justin Trudeau if you sucked all the charisma out of Justin Trudeau. I've been in that room over there many times. I had breakfast today. Toast. With butter. It's great to be here, everyone. He's like an automaton. Like the amount of pregnant pauses he has in the statement is insane. There's nothing to it. The entire thing is this. This is 19 minutes.
Tapping on the floor as we try to get the blood flowing into our toes. I don't remember a January day like today in Edmonton when I was playing hockey. I'll tell you that.
It's because it's kind of warm outside.
Now,
okay, I'm gonna just rescue you guys from this for a second. I'm gonna jump to the actual moments that were somewhat interesting, where he was, had his, his big moments of the speech, which were really not that big at all. Here's what the room looked like, by the way. This is what people like Sean Amato from CTV News are trying to portray as a packed room. Look at this. Yeah, it's like a middling Pure Polyev rally. This is like a third of a Pure Polyev rally. And look at it. Like probably a good quarter, 30% of the room is media. Look at all the cameras. There's no people standing around the camera. So it's people packed along the edges of the room. And Mark Carney must have the lowest self-esteem of any leadership candidate to have George Chahal, the Porsche pirate himself, standing behind him at the event. Really? You're going to have George Chahal as like the man, like as one of your campaign avatars, and standing next to George Chahal, as you'll see in this thing, is the lady who has never found a terrorist organization she doesn't like. This is the crowd that Mark Carney is bringing along with him in this leadership race. But here's a clip that Bruce McGonigal put up of a big moment for Mark Carney of him trying to say that everything's going to be different now.
Old times, my friends, are over. Our times are anything but ordinary. The system, it's not working as it should.
Dude, this guy was part of the system for the last 2 years. The last 3 years, he was an economic advisor to Justin Trudeau. This whole thing is ridiculous. Oh, bad times, hard times are over. You were part of the hard times, the bad times. You submitted policy that made the hard times worse.
And it's not working as it could. People are anxious. No wonder. Too many are falling behind. Too many young people can't afford a home. Too many people can't find a doctor. And then we're living through the two biggest technological revolutions since they split the atom. And our climate is changing in ways that threatens livelihoods from Fort Mac to Fort Smith. And then on top of that, as George just mentioned, in just 4 days, the United States will swear in Donald Trump as their 47th president, a man who threatens economic force on his closest, most steadfast allies, including Canada.
You just survived through 1 minute and 10 seconds of Mark Carney talking, and basically nothing was said. That happy days are here again, guys. Why? I don't know, because Mark Carney is going to be the prime minister for about 3 weeks before Pierre Poilievre beats him. I don't know who this is working on at all. And again, I'm going to go back to the fundamental point of how Mark Carney's campaign strategy is working here. He is trying to bring overwhelming support to make it seem like he cannot be beat. Everyone better get behind me. He's trailing with MP endorsements right now. And I know MP endorsements don't mean much usually in a race, but in the Liberal Party, I guarantee they mean more than in the Conservative Party, because the Conservative Party is a very individualistic party overall, so people don't really want to be told by their local MP who to vote for. But in the Liberal Party, where it's a more technocratic, elite party, you're probably more likely to go the way that your local MP is going when it comes to the vote. And Mark Carney is losing the MP arms race right now, which is truly pathetic because he has Team Trudeau behind him. But because he has Team Trudeau behind him, all these Liberal MPs, and let me be clear, they're all hypocrites. They all still agree with the Trudeau agenda. But because they don't like the stench of Trudeau on their potential prime ministerial candidate, a lot of them are staying away. Karina Gould even has 2 MPs endorsing her, which is kind of surprising. I didn't think anyone but Carney and Freeland would be getting endorsements. But I think Freeland's strategy here, as terrible of a politician as she is too, again, zero charisma. She's at least being smart. She knifed Trudeau on the way out of her job as finance minister and deputy prime minister. Again, she basically agreed with Trudeau the entire way. And as it was pointed out to me yesterday, really she was only upset with Trudeau because he had blown out the budget by 1% more than she would have liked. She had no problem with the $625 billion of other spending and other debt that we've accumulated. She only got upset about the debt that the Liberals have accumulated once it was over her red line of $40 billion and it went to $62 billion. Really? That was what upset her? Really, it wasn't. I think she just knew that Trudeau was already on his way out and she needed a fake conflict with the man so then she could run for leader. And I think she's organized all of these also-ran candidates like Frank Baylis and Chandra Arya and Karina Gould and Jamie Batsey to all run, basically to ensure that she can have good support on second, third, and fourth ballots, having these people with different community connections funneling her 10,000 votes here, 15,000 votes there, and then she can slowly overcome Mark Carney on the preceding ballots. But again, it's funny that I can basically say nothing about Mark Carney. Nothing really happened in this announcement event, and that's the problem. Nothing really happened. There wasn't much of a moment. Here's the one thing I have to show you guys because I find this absolutely ridiculous. There's this Christio Aivalis guy who is already complaining that Mark Carney has taken a hard right turn because the left in Canada has been lobotomized. and they think that not going full Soviet socialism is like right wing. Look at this. He's not even saying something remotely conservative, but this is considered too right for many on the left. So Christo says Mark Carney makes a hard right turn, attacks social programs. We can't redistribute what we don't have. He sounds exactly like a conservative MP. His Liberal Party would just be the cons with a red shirt on. By the way, no wonder new polls are showing the NDP sometimes only at 13% or 15% in the polls, because they are full of sanctimonious socialists who legitimately see the saying that we need to actually grow the economy as an affront to their values. Again, what Mark Carney is about to say here is wrong too. He basically Mark Carney saying we need to grow the economy so we can redistribute wealth. He doesn't actually care about the economy other than the growth of the economy allowing him to take money from some people and give it to others.
Just as Pierre Poilievre's soundbites won't deliver for Canadians, we can't achieve our full potential with the ideas of the far left. They too often see government as the solution to every problem, with a reflex to spend and subsidize that just treats the symptoms of the problems, but doesn't cure the disease.
You know, that sounds somewhat conservative, but again, he's about to go to ground saying that, well, we can't redistribute if we don't grow. But again, you were in charge for the last 2 years. He literally was backing all the programs that just treat the symptoms and do not actually solve the problem of unaffordability, inflation, high taxes, high regulations. He is a fan of high taxes and regulations. He is literally part of the WEF. He sat on their board for a bit, I believe. Maybe he didn't sit on the board, but he's there all the time. He loves their agenda overall, which is basically a proto-socialist agenda where we talk about how great markets are, but we also want to steal all the gains of markets and then give it to the government.
We can't redistribute what we don't have. And we can't support the vulnerable in our society or defend this great country if we have a weak economy. And I'm here to build the strongest economy for all Canadians.
Yeah, give the boy a do-over. It was an oopsie the first time he messed up in government. The last 3 years, it's just a little bit of an oopsie. And can I quickly mention, this is something that happened on the Jon Stewart Daily Show interview with Mark Carney, which I am convinced was actually supposed to be an interview with Trudeau, that after Trudeau announced that he wasn't going to be, running again, that then they swapped him out for Mark Carney, because there's no way Jon Stewart knows who Mark Carney is. Jon Stewart's a complete moron, and he does not know who Mark Carney is. But they tried to give him credit for Canada surviving the 2008 housing crisis. That was all Harper. That was legitimately Harper. If Harper had any big achievement in his time as prime minister, it was not dumping money into community reinvestment programs like the U.S. had. The housing crisis in the U.S. had nothing to do with the banks on a fundamental level. It was all to do with government basically incentivizing banks to give people subprime mortgages, which ended up destroying the housing market in many cities across America. It wasn't even all the cities. You know how little the Dallas housing market was affected by the housing crisis? Their housing prices went down 3%. This isn't like Malibu or places in Miami where their housing prices halved or even went lower than that, because that's where all the subprime mortgages were located and where it was difficult to build housing, so the prices were inflating. That's what really went on there. Mark Carney gets no credit. Basically, Stephen Harper's conservatism was why Canada survived, not because of Mark Carney's shrewd monetary policy. And we know it had nothing to do with Mark Carney's shrewd monetary policy, because he's been advising Trudeau to do the exact opposite of what Harper was doing in 2008, which is increasing spending, trying to spur artificial growth with lower interest rates that we really can't sustain right now with the weakness of the economy. It's just going to cause more inflation. But yeah, that clip right there, where Mark Carney wasn't a communist, is apparently why he is bad to the NDP. Even though Mark Carney and Jagmeet Singh basically sound the same, it's really hard to make a big differentiation. But here we have people who are supporting Mark Carney. I love the embrace of technocracy inside the Liberal Party. It's embarrassing to a laughable extent. So they're trying to make the case here that actually Mark Carney is quite good. Why? Because look, he has credentials. Look, we value credentials in this policy. So with Polyev here, it says bachelor's in international relations at University of Calgary, landlord and real estate speculator, lifelong politician, 20 years in office, zero bills to his name. And then you have, oh, look, Mark Carney, he's done so much, he's done so many things. Oh, make this man prime minister because he's been chair and governor of a lot of stuff. Has he been that good at anything he's done? Well, not really. And this is the fundamental difference. Conservatives value merit. Liberals value credentials. Mark Carney does not have merit, neither the leadership skills to lead Canada nor the right policy prescriptions. But don't you know that he has a master's degree? Don't you know he has a PhD? I'm not even sure if he has a PhD. I just assume the man does. He sat on this board. He sat on this board. He's a fellow of this institute. He's a fellow of that institute. Who gives a crap? It literally does not mean anything. Guys, I have a master's degree. And guess what? You shouldn't be impressed by that at all. My master's degree in public policy basically just taught me that policy people are insane. They think that the more details and more regulations you add to something, the better the policy is. The more detailed, the better. The more pages to the policy, the better. I find that repulsive. I think that policy should be simple and should allow courts to figure out the vagaries in the long run. You don't need 50 stipulations to make it good policy. If anything, that just means that you can walk up to anyone, point at them, and find 5 crimes they're currently committing because the policy in their area of work is too complicated to follow, even for a lawyer. Anyways, so that was that person's endorsement of Mark Carney. Here is another post in support of Mark Carney. You will think that this is anti-Carney and it's satire. I scrolled through the entire person's timeline. This is not satire. This person, Claire Style, says, I'm excited to share that I am supporting Mark Carney to be the leader of the Liberal Party. Canada needs a technocrat who can deliver results, and Mark possesses the international reputation needed to guide our country through challenging times. Yes, this person is literally pro-technocracy. They want a technocrat leading Canada. What is Mark Carney technically sound at doing? I don't know. He's a bureaucrat, and that means that he's good at stuff because he reads reports or whatever. Reports from people who don't know what they're talking about, but he has a study to prove to you that burning the economy down is actually the best option. That's the thing. This is another thing from my policy background. I hate whenever someone says, well, I have a study that can prove this or that thing. No, you don't. Know why? Because I can get a study to prove anything. And the Liberal government has been a study-driven government. Well, we have a study that shows the carbon tax doesn't actually increase food prices. Oh, well, we have a study to show that people benefit more from the carbon tax rebate than they would if it didn't exist at all. No, you don't. No, you don't. I can make a study to prove anything if I just mess with the metrics enough. And that is every single thing that comes out supposedly showing that whatever the Liberals are backing or whatever is actually going to make us all wealthier. We're all billionaires right now. I'm not sure if you know that or not, because if you even know that, because apparently every single Liberal policy has made us more healthy, wealthy, and wise. Here is the video that Mark Carney himself on his own campaign page posted to X to advertise himself. This is what his campaign thought was his best moment.
If you remember one thing from what I say today, remember this. I am going to be completely focused on getting our economy back on track.
I was very unfocused the last 2 years of advising Trudeau, but I've gotten a good night's sleep and I'm going to actually try. He actually reminds me a lot of John Kerry. So guys, please avoid John Kerry. Do not vote for Mark Carney in the Liberal leadership race if you were planning on doing it, and don't vote for him in the general election.
And if you wonder why I can succeed where others have failed or will fall short, consider this. I've helped manage multiple crises, and I've helped save 2 economies. I know how business works, and I know how to make it work for you. I've worked around the world, but I'm grounded in what I learned right here in Edmonton. To be responsible, to be fair, to stay humble, to work together, and to never, ever give up.
Oh my goodness. Don't you guys feel so empowered right now? This is going to be a difficult race to sit through. Again, if you guys haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, like the video, because I am suffering following this race. This is actually like agonizing to watch. It's funny in like a so boring it becomes funny sort of a thing. But here is the current endorsement map for the Liberal leadership that Polling Canada has put together. It's run by a lefty NDP guy. He actually ran for the Ontario NDP, but he does a good job of displaying information. But this is the current breakdown of endorsements, and this is where Carney's in big trouble. Again, Freeland is not a force of personality. Neither is he. Neither is Karina Gould's kind of force of personality, but like in an annoying way. But regardless, Freeland has 24 endorsements right now. Carney, with Team Trudeau behind him, and the fact he's already announced, only has 16. Freeland hasn't even announced. She's apparently announcing on Sunday. Karina has 2, and then Aria and Batsy just have themselves, and then Frank Bales isn't on this chart because he's not currently an MP. He's just a one-term guy. Honestly, the Liberal Party of Canada, would be smart to run Frank Bales as their leader. He's an actual, he's not an outsider, but he could have a better, he could make a better case that he's an outsider than Mark Carney could. He's a business owner. Is he corrupt? Of course he is. All the Liberal MPs are corrupt. He was involved in like ventilator scams during COVID. But let's be clear, no Liberal cares about that sort of thing because they were in favor of a lot of the corruption. But anyways, at least Frank Bales has a business background. At least he's from Montreal. At least he actually can speak English without a crazy heavy accent. He can actually speak French, unlike Chandra Arya. And he doesn't feel like Trudeau. That would be a smart guy to run, honestly. He was also the only Liberal so far to not set his hair on fire about Donald Trump. He just says that everything Trump's been saying about the 51st state, it's just a negotiating tactic. We should ignore it and put together our own trade position and advocate hard. I'm like sitting there like, oh my goodness, there's a Liberal with a head on his shoulders. Not much of a head, but at least he's got something. All these other people are running on nothing. You know, Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney are both currently running against the consumer carbon tax. Yes, they are both suddenly big anti-carbon tax campaigners, apparently, that they're going to get rid of it because, you know, we can't have the carbon tax around with Trump coming into office. Okay, yeah, great excuse, guys, because no one suggested dumping it up until this very second when you had to differentiate each other. We are headed towards Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland's singularity, where they are going to become the same person by the end of this race. Mark Carney might as well change his last name to Freeland, and Freeland should change her last name to Carney, because that's what's going on here. Two people who are barely different from each other, just representing either the pro-Trudeau or anti-Trudeau faction of the party, running against each other on nothing in particular. It's so difficult to watch. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. If you noticed anything interesting about Mark Carney other than him hanging out with Ghislaine Maxwell at one point, I already know about that. Let me know in the comments below. It's always good for me to look this stuff over. I can't name an interesting thing about this guy. He did not achieve his goal of actually being a big force entering this race. He's boring. He comes off like John Kerry, Joe Biden, and Justin Trudeau all at the same time in only bad ways. And I actually see Freeland with more of the momentum at this point, despite the fact she is a ridiculously unempathetic type person. She does not connect with people well, but she's not as robotic as Carney, which I guess gives her the human edge, even though I don't believe she's human either. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. Have a good one.